Good evening everybody and welcome to tonight's festival. We're celebrating LMS and BR Black tonight. I do apologise for the late running of this service, however we will try and do our best to get you to your destinations on time. So, steam engines. It's about time we had a festival on steam engines, I think. So today we're looking at not one, not two, but 8 steam engines. So the Stania Jubilee, the Ginty, the 3F from Mesh Tools, lovely loco. We're going to be driving the 3F later on. That's a little 060 tank engine. The 6MT Clan, who's also normally homed on the Western Lines of Scotland. The BR Standard Class 2MT, which also comes with scenarios for the Western Lines of Scotland. Duchess of Sutherland, a large 8P passenger loco. The Fowler 4F, which is an 060 tender steam engine. And the BR 9F, one of the biggest, most powerful steam engines on the rails, and was one of the last. It was the last class produced in the UK. And then finally the J50, which is the another 060, and again from Mesh Tools. And so apologies, the 2MT is from Digital Traction. So there's a wide variety covering everything from the 060 tanks right up to massive 9Fs and 8Ps. So we hope you're going to enjoy what we're showing today. So we're going to run a scenario with the 3F on the Western Lines of Scotland. Steve's going to be driving and I'm going to be sitting here commenting. Should be fun.
Let the hilarity pursue.
Right, switch us to the game then, Steve. Hi everybody.
Everyone.
Right.
So this should be fun. Should be interesting.
This should be good. I'm looking forward to this. The 3F is one of my personal favourite steam engines. It's really nice to drive. And being a little tank engine, it's quite nimble. Yeah, so you can do switching with it. You can take it on local haul passenger runs, which is what we're going to be doing today.
Well, it's more of a bit of a shunting activity. That's what it is.
It's a shunt. Okay, it's a shunting activity.
So, yeah.
So, Steve, are we going to be driving in standard mode or advanced mode?
Advanced.
We are going to be driving in advanced mode.
We've got everything switched off, all the assists. So we're manually firing, as well as all the bells and whistles, so to speak.
Superb.
So let's get rid of that one. Let's bring up that one. So let's have a quick look around.
So this is the 3F loco. This one's from Mesh Tools. The particular favourite of both Steve and myself. So the route is Western Lines of Scotland. I don't quite know where we are exactly at the moment.
Forget what it's called. Is it Kirkcudbright or something like that?
Oh, Kirkcudbright.
Yeah.
We're down on the branch. Okay, we're down in Kirkcudbright on the branch line. So hello to everyone on the chat. Thank you all for joining us this evening.
Let's get some call on there, please.
If I look down here, by the way, I'm just having a look at the chat window so that I can ask. If you've got any questions, please do ask them. We really want to hear what you've got to say. Tell us what your thoughts are on the steam engines. What's your favourite steam engine in the game, and do you like to drive advanced mode or do you like to drive simple controls? How do you drive your steam engines? And if you don't drive steam engines, why not? So what are we doing now, Steve?
Yeah, we're just waiting, just building the fire up a little bit, just so we've got a bit more on there, mass up a bit. And then we're just going to open the little injector just to bring the brakes off. And just a little bit of regulator. We've got a cylinder cocked open, so we're not compressing water in the cylinders.
Ninja Joker says his at the A4 and Karma 99 says advanced all the way. Well, Karma 99 would. Karma 99 is Victory Works, who's produced a number of excellent steam engines. They're Great Western though. Nick Farrant, favourite steam loco is the 56XX. Excellent. That's another one, probably my second favourite loco. It really is nice. Again, just because it's lovely and versatile.
What's that here? Just make sure we've got all of our points set up properly.
So where we are at the moment is so on the western lines of Scotland. You start at Carlisle on the eastern side. The line then runs north a little bit to the junction, but avoid eluding me at the moment, and then turns west to Dumfries, and then from Dumfries it turns west. It continues on west to Castle Douglas. At Castle Douglas, you can then go either off to Newton Stewart and then to Stranraer, or at Castle Douglas you can turn south to Kirkcudbright on a little branch line, and that's where we are now. So if you imagine with about 3/4 of the way along the length of the route and down a little bit on the branch line. Joe, Steve isn't in the chat tonight. He's on driving duties tonight.
Yeah. Trying to concentrate on driving a kettle.
Phil says Jubilee is the favourite. Drive normally with auto fireman off. Advanced says just scares me. Mr. Sandman says, is it me or just most steam cabs too dark? Some cabs are dark, but what you'll find is that some of them actually have cab lights as well. So the Duchess of Sutherland has got cab lights on them, and in fact it's got cab lights and I think instrument lights even. It's got quite a nice array of modern features in that cab. The Black 5 that comes with Western Lines of Scotland has a cab light as well, which I believe is Control L or Control H you can switch on. It causes lovely shadows to play along the back of the boiler as you move the controls around. Dovetail Gaming says, I like any British steam locomotive. They're all fantastic and are my favourite type of train. Shame they don't always operate services though. No, indeed.
Head out so we can see where we're going.
Dovetail Gaming says, he drives steam trains in easy mode. He can't understand advanced mode. It's practice, to be honest, and it's just learning how the different controls work. Lovely audio on that.
Oh, it's awesome, isn't it? I don't normally drive steam engines, but I absolutely adore driving this thing.
There's a really neat feature actually that caught me out the first couple of times I drove on this one, because if you open the regulator a little bit and then try and close it, it won't always close properly, and so you'll find you're almost running away. And what you have to do is open the regulator all the way and slam it shut. And that's the only way to actually completely close it. It's really cool once you know it. It's not very cool when you don't know it and you're trying to stop the train because you're going into some coaches. Joe the Fish says he prefers simple things like AWS, DSD, TVM and PZB. Enough said on that subject, I think, Joe.
The guy gone yet? Yeah, okay.
Where are we up to on the scenario now, Steve?
Well, basically we've got a couple to these coaches in the siding next to us, and now we've got to park them in the platform now.
Ah, so we're making the train up potentially.
Yeah.
Excellent. Wolfram says, who are the guys in the corner? Do you mean us? So I'm Matt. And this is Steve. He's busy driving. Previously, or other times, this will be DTG Steve on the chat. And I'm normally the one doing everything wrong. Mavadello says the bald one is Matt and the one without hair is Steve. Thank you for the clarification there, Mavadello. Jordan Brooker, what's the key to change modes? Well, it depends on the loco. So if you're driving something like the 3F, there is no key to change the modes. When you pick the scenario, you pick whether or not you're going to do the standard version or you're going to do the advanced version. And there's a number of locos that come with standard versions or advanced versions. In other cases, such as some of the Victory Works locos, you press a key sequence to switch between them. I believe it's Control A, but it does tell you in the top right corner what mode you're in and how you change it. And I think those are the two common ways. On the Black 5 on the Western Lines of Scotland and a number of the DTG, the Dovetail locos, you press the bell button to switch between legacy Steam mode and the sort of more advanced realistic Steam mode. The only thing that really changes is how the Steam chest is managed. What you find in a real Steam engine, you find when you open the regulator, there's a delay before you actually feel the power of the force, because it's got to go through the steam chest. And similarly, when you close the regulator, the steam chest has to empty. And so in realistic mode on the Dovetail steam engines, you'll find that is simulated. Similarly, in a lot of these advanced locos from third-party developers like Mesh Tools and Victory Works and so forth, that's all, again, it's all simulated.
I think Black 5's already left.
Train Simmer, we'll get back to you after the stream on that. So for those that are just joining, we are looking at steam engines today. This is the LMS and BR Black Festival. We've got 8 steam engines that we're looking at. In particular, we're running a scenario at the moment with the Mesh Tools BR3F, which is a little 060 tank engine. We're running on the Western Lines of Scotland route, and Steve is ably at the controls. He's doing everything. He's got driving controls, firing controls, and it's all set to advanced simulation. So he's really doing everything he can here. When you come to a good moment, Steve, we've had a request to turn the audio down a little bit. Okay. So when you stop, we'll do that. Paul from Kessering says, is the Big Boy one of them? No, the Big Boy is not a BR or LMS loco. Jordan Brooker, the loud hissing, what does that mean? So the loud hissing is safety valves, and it's because you're only shunting, and because Steve built up a good fire, it's actually become a really, really good machine for creating steam. So because we're not using a lot of steam, the safeties keep going off. It's not a problem, that's why they're there. It's a problem if they don't go off. Right, so if you can slide that right hand volume down 2 notches. That'll do. So should we just lower the audio of the game a little bit? Let us know if we need to adjust that some more, and we will do so.
Now we've got to go and get some wagons.
Wagon time.
All the way over here.
So if you're not familiar with the map view, you press the 9 key to the map view, then you right click and drag in order to be able to move around it. Left click on the blue dots to change the points, and use the mouse wheel to zoom in and out. Lucas Eddy, what engine are we driving? We are driving the BR3F steam engine, which is developed by Mesh Tools. Paul from Kettering says, I hear the best oven cooked food comes from a steam engine. You're absolutely right. Best egg and bacon, best egg and bacon comes from the fireman's shovel, and the best jacket potatoes come from the smoke box.
We're on a bit of a steep hill here, so I'll try and not to do a Mr. Overspeed.
Jordan Bricker is that so he says, you mentioned having to slam the regulator down to close it. Is that the same on the 9F? No, it isn't. That feature is fairly unique to this Mesh Tools 3F. Danny's Gaming says, my favourite loco is Sir Nigel Gresley.
The old Air4 Pacifics.
I like the A4s. The A4s are one of my favourite class of steam locos overall. Woody TV would like smell-o-vision. As long as it's for a steam engine, I completely agree. There's a selection of scenarios that actually come with it, and they come. It'll come with the 3F on Western Lines of Scotland, and they come both for advanced mode and standard mode loco. So, and it's the same scenarios on each version. So, if you're not keen on advanced mode, then you can play the standard mode, and you still get exactly the same scenarios to play. And it's a mixture of shunting, like this scenario, and there's other scenarios where you actually need to get up some speed and manage the boiler pressure and so forth, which is also quite a good challenge.
Should be interesting getting up this hill.
Lucas said he would like to know what our favourite engines are. Steve?
It's kind of difficult to say, actually. Mine's actually, I mean, if you think we're talking about steam, then it has to be the 3F. Definitely.
In my case, it's a bit tricky because it depends what I want to do with it. If it's for doing short haul like this, then the 3F or the 56XX probably have a fairly equal footing. If it's for something long haul, then I'd probably go for something a bit bigger, like the Duchess. The Duchess is a beautiful loco.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of my absolute favourites is the 4MTT, which is the, I think it was the 4P, I think they used to call it. It's actually 4MTT. It's got a bigger tank on it, but it's also got it's also got the integrated tender.
Right.
It's easy going the other way, but it's going downhill.
Yes, Jordan Brooker says that Steve's volume is quite low compared to mine. It might be an idea to turn the in-game sounds down just a little bit more.
Might just be because I don't talk for as loud as you.
No, I tend to shout.
Let's get rid of these bad boys. Get some water in.
Sounds good to me. You can tell when you've got that balance, and one of the things the 3F actually simulates is that you've got the steam that you use. So when you're injecting water, you're trying to take water from a low pressure cold environment, a relatively cold environment, and you're putting it into a very high pressure boiler. And obviously you can't just open a hole and pour water in. That's not going to work. So they have this thing called an injector. What they do is they push steam through the injector and then put water into the steam, and then that pushes it back into the water. That's a very, very simplistic way of describing it, but essentially it uses the steam to push the water in. So you've got two taps, basically is what I'm getting to. You've got two taps. You've got one which controls the steam and one which controls the water. And what you need to do is balance them up so that the amount of steam and the amount of water you're putting in are right. Otherwise you end up in a situation that you're putting loads of water out the side of the loco, or you're putting loads of steam out the side of the loco. And when you've got it right, you can tell because it sings. You can hear as you adjust it. You can hear the pitch of it. Thank you for the tip, Train Simmer. Yes, we read it. Thank you. PWSW 5054 says, I've at 2MT tender and tanks for me, or the castles. Oh, the castle. That's a lovely loco.
Yeah, I have to say that.
Castle blasting down the Riviera line.
Castle is amazing loco, that is. It's actually considered to be William Stanley's finest engineering feat. It's probably one of the most efficient steam locomotives you can actually get. In fact, everybody, it's well known that the Castle was the foundation in terms of technology used for every steam locomotive ever built after that.
That doesn't surprise me. It's a lovely loco. .60163 cube says Castle equals GWR equals best.
I don't know, I have to disagree with you with that. The water, I think. Can't beat the simplicity of this loco in terms of its control.
Yes, there's not much to it, is there really?
No.
One of the things actually that will catch people out when you first run one of these advanced locos is, Steve, can you press the E key?
Give me a sec. Let me just couple up to these wagons.
So on the cutoff, which is the name for the reverser controlled on a steam engine, there is that lever there, look, that's moving backwards and forwards. What that lever does is it locks the reverser or the cutoff into its current position. And what you'll find is that on the advanced locos, you can't move the cutoff for the reverser forwards and backwards. And that's because you need to press and hold the E key to do the release, and then the W and S key will then allow it to move it forwards and backwards.
Are we close enough? No. Typical.
Lunch. That's it. Yep. The other thing you can't do with the advanced locos is operate the, if you've got the regulator open and you're putting steam through the system. If you were to then press the E key and release that cut-off, what happens is the cut-off will go flying forwards because of all the steam pressure behind it. So when you're driving these locos, you need to pull the regulator back to 0, wait a moment for the steam chest to actually empty out, and then you can move the cut-off forwards and backwards, which can add a real challenge to going up the hills. So if you're going up a hill, you've just about made it to a point where you really need to be gearing back on the cut-off, but you've got to take your power off. So there's a bit of a challenge there in pushing it a bit further forward, and then doing that change quickly so that you can then carry on running faster. Because obviously running at the top end of the current setting for the gear that you're in, you're going to be wasting steam, and that's the other thing you can't afford to do when you're on the way up a hill. There's lots of other features here with windows and doors that open and close as well, which is quite nice. As with any of these advanced locos, I strongly recommend you read the manual. They're great fun to drive, but it will take you some practice to learn them. Watch videos of them being driven, like this one, and read the manual, and then practice. You're not going to get it right first time, but that's the fun, to be honest, is learning to drive these and then getting a really nice reward for feeling great when you figured it out. PJT Phil says, I can manual, what's one of them? So that thing you put your cup of tea on.
Yeah. Makes a great wasp spotter as well.
Yeah, wasp spotter, that's the other good use for it.
Right. So let's, we're just about to go out on the main line, so let's get some water in. Before we do that, make sure we're in the coals the right place. There's one more.
Can we have a look at the windows opening while we're sat here? Oh, look at that, they all move. Huh? Brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah, they all open up. It's got one of the best rain effects on the windows ever in a loco. Where's the other one gone?
You might have to go to the other position to get to that window now.
Close back down.
Middle.
There we go. We're here for a little bit while we
Karma99 says, I just find Steam Loco so much more engaging, a real sense of achievement when you complete a scenario. I completely agree. Absolutely.
Quite challenging things to drive as well. So you're not sat there just enjoying the scenery. There is a real element of challenge to the whole experience. You know, it's they're really quite interesting things to drive, I think. You know, and it offers up a whole new challenge to, you know, usual diesels that you can just press and go. You know, diesels are nice, you just press that button and away you go, but you know, with these you've really got to think about what you do and when you do it.
And keep doing it all the time. You've got to keep monitoring it and adjusting it and tweaking it.
It's almost like getting a real workout, this thing, you know.
Yeah, but if you do a quick drive and you run from Stranraer into Carlisle, that's hard work, because the gradient changes mean that you continually having to adjust everything and monitor what you're doing. It is really hard work. Another fun route to do that on is the West Highland Line extension. It's a very hilly, bumpy route. The gradients are constantly changing, and some of them are really steep, including one station I think where you stop on a 1 in 50 gradient, which is fun if you've got a heavy train. Jordan Brooker says, why does steam come out of the front? That's an excellent question. That is the cylinder cocks, or the drain cocks. So what that is that so you're putting steam into the steam chest when you open the regulator. It then goes into push to push the cylinders. But when you're not doing anything, there was some steam and some moisture and so forth in there, and it condenses and turns into water. Now steam is really compressible. You can squeeze it up and it's really good for that. Water is really not good at being compressible. So what happens is that you get this water build up if you're stationary for an amount of time. And if you then just started using the steam, pushing steam back into the cylinders, what would happen is that the cylinders would move, and eventually they get to a point where they're trying to push up against all this water, and then that causes either the end caps on the cylinders blow off, or you have much more major problems with bent and twisted connecting rods. It gets really messy, and it usually is the end of a steam engine's life for quite some time, if not permanently. So you have these little drain cocks or cylinder cocks, which is you operate with a C key, and so if ever you're stationary for any amount of time, just open them and let them sit there. As soon as you start moving, you'll get a load of steam coming out the front. What that does is it blows all the water out of the cylinder cocks, out of the cylinders, and then after you've done a few revolutions of the wheels and you've got plenty, and you know that it's clear, then you close them off again, and then what you'll find is that you'll get more power then from it than otherwise. So in some locos, in fact, such as the Victory Works locos in advanced mode, it will end the game if you don't operate the cylinder cocks correctly. Whereas I think on the mesh tools ones, it's slightly more, you find the efficiency of the loco goes down. So do operate the cylinder cocks correctly. It's also a nice effect. If you're doing your screenshots, open the cylinder cocks, open the regulator up, you get a lovely effect out the front, and then grab your screenshot. Lovely whistle as well. So what Steve's operating now is the other set of injection controls. So the way that steam engines work is you have two kinds of ways. So the way I described, there are two controls for injecting water. You have the steam control and the water control. There's actually two sets of them. One uses live steam from the boiler, so all that stuff that's built up and ready to go into the steam chest. And the other uses the exhaust, so the stuff that's actually, once it's been through the cylinders and been used, before it goes out of the chimney, it can then be used to inject water. Obviously, in an ideal world, that's the steam you want to use. You don't want to use the steam in the boiler. So while you've got the regulator open, you use the exhaust steam controls, and while you've got the regulator closed, or if you need extra support, then you can use the live steam controls to use the boiler pressure, the steam in the boiler to actually inject water as well. I love how the shadows dance across the cab as we're going around this corner. Really nice. Jordan Brooker, this is actually a cab position that's been set slightly out, so it gives you a head-out style view, but if you look inside the cab you can still operate all of the controls, whereas in a proper head-out view, with the shift 2 key, if you look inside you're actually on the exterior model, so you can't operate any of the controls. So this is a really nice compromise that allows you to still operate everything and get the benefit of the head-out view at the same time. Since we're running the route, I should probably just give a little credit there. This is Western Lines of Scotland. It's by Keith Ross, who is known as Crossrails. He's done a number of different projects, but for steam enthusiasts, I think this is probably one of the favourite routes around. It's Carlisle to Stranraer in the late 50s, that sort of area, towards the latter end of BR Black steam. The route itself didn't really survive much into diesel, with a lot of the track work being ripped up. So in the current day, the line from Carlisle to Dumfries still exists, but Dumfries west to Stranraer doesn't. KevMC291 says, I love how that thing is rattling along. It is lovely, isn't it? You can really, it really feels like a working steam engine. PMS35054 says the Stranraer line is good. It is indeed. So essentially there is a junction, I can't remember the name of the junction off the top of my head. So if you drive from Newton Stewart west to Stranraer, you will come to a junction where the line merges in from the right, and that is the line from Ayr, and then from that point on that bit of the line does indeed exist still. That's really not far away from Stranraer. How are we getting on, Steve? Is it looking good?
Yeah, all looking really good. For the destination now, we'll close up these up.
So if you've just joined us, we are currently driving the BR3F from Mesh Tools on the Western Lines of Scotland route from Crossrails, and we're just in Taff at the moment on the Castle Douglas Kukubri branch. Steve is driving.
We just need to get some water in that boiler before we go bang.
So it's really important that you remember to inject water into the boiler. If you don't have water, if you don't put enough water into the boiler, it'll uncover some fusible plugs, which will then kill the steam engine. Basically, it does that so that the steam engine doesn't actually explode. So definitely, you need to keep an eye on it. You don't want to overfill because that can cause priming, and you don't want to underfill because that can cause explosions.
We'll go along to the next station now, so I'll get some water in. And we've got to go here. All the way
John Brooker asked how many scenarios running tonight. We're just going to run the one scenario. Just wanted to talk to everyone about Steam, particularly the LMS and BR Black Steam. See what your thoughts are. See what you like. What haven't we done that you think we should do?
Oh, it's not filling up. Didn't open the cock very wide. There she goes. Right, so the boiler level's pretty low at the moment, but we need to sit here for a while we fill that up. Love the fire effect on this, it's just absolutely incredible. Yeah, let's check his watch now. Didn't think they had watches back then.
Timepieces. Perhaps we could have a look around the station while we're here and
It's starting to rain now.
There's a number of people asking for a Merchant Navy spam can, rebuilt Merchant Navy. Excellent ideas.
Spam can? What? Oh, you mean the Light Pacific?
Yeah.
So I think there's something else that we haven't shown yet on this local, which is the little lights. I don't remember what the keys are. You can set your own head codes and turn lights on and off.
So that's done with control 1, 2, 3 and 4. You press H to turn your headlights on, then you use control 1, 2, 3 and 4 to toggle each position on and off. What these headlights meant was they told the signalman when the train was coming past what kind of train this was, and whether or not it was fully fitted with air brakes, whether it was partially fitted with air brakes, whether it was an express train. If they were all switched on, it's actually a Royal train, or whether it's just a light loco. And then using that, the signalman would have a good idea of then, is it the train that he was expecting it to be, and its general capabilities. The game won't penalise if you set them incorrectly, but the manual for a lot of the Steam engines does tell you what all of the different codes are, so you can then set that up yourself. Suggestion from Ed, by the way, is to use the other injector as well. You're using the live injector at the moment.
Yeah.
Have you got the regulator open?
Yeah.
I just can't use the other injector. Common 99 makes a valid point, except on the southern where the lamps indicated the destination. Indeed. And I think there were 6 of them, not 4. And there were 2 different types of lighting codes as well, just to make it really confusing. So I think pre-1939 they used combinations where you could need up to 3 different lights. Post-1939 there was a new system where they only needed up to 2 lights. If you Google it, you can find out all about it. It's fascinating stuff. It's got 2 live injectors and no exhaust ejector on this locomotive apparently.
Oh really?
eSimo123 asks, how do you change to advanced mode? It's the loco you choose when you make the scenario. So it'll say 3F ADV or 3F STD, and then that. So it's a different scenario. So because they're actually done as 2 different locomotives. So all you need to do is make sure that you've got the one that you want to drive the scenario with. So Ed actually makes a really interesting point. Ed is part of Mesh Tools, I should point out, and was one of the wizards behind this locomotive. He says the head codes on this do affect the brake timings. So an unfitted head code will be a lot quicker to apply and release the brakes than a fully fitted head code. So if you set the right head code, then the actual experience that you have will actually change the experience that you have with the loco. Or you can cheat and set the wrong one so that you get better brakes. But we don't do that. Train Simulator says, do you think it's possible to make platform doors for Train Simulator? We'll find out. We can certainly pass that inquiry on to the technical team and find out. So where are we headed to next then, Steve? Good day. Superb. So we're working our way slowly up the branch line. Does this take us all the way back up to Dovetail? It's been a while since I played this one. It is a really nice scenario. It's a really nice scenario, this one. Ethan123 says, can you drive any steam loco in advanced mode? No. Some locos, and they do their advanced mode in different ways. So I mentioned this previously, I'll just summarise it again. Some locos it's done as a different locomotive, and therefore you pick a different scenario or a different loco for quick drives. Some locos you actually toggle it, so on a lot of Victory Works locos you press the Control A key, I think it is, to toggle between the basic, sort of the normal mode and the advanced mode. And in some of the other locos you have a lot of Dovetail locos, you use the bell button to switch between what they call legacy steam simulation and realistic steam simulation, which just controls how the regulator controls the way the steam gets to the wheels. So you can toggle it with the B buttons. Steve Glasses says, how do you use the injector? When I try and advance grind it doesn't work. So there's on the 3F though, you do have to get everything in the right place. So there is a little bit of a trick to it. Ed probably on the chat would be the best person to explain it. But essentially you turn one of the controls all the way up and the other one, I think the steam control you turn all the way up and the water control you turn about 75% up. What you should then do is listen for it as you adjust it. You can hear it singing. And if it's singing, then the water's going in. If it's not singing, you hear it sloshing around, then you've not got the settings right. On some of the other locos, you just simply make sure you switch both of them on. turn the water on and then the steam. Exactly, that's it. Got to get them in the right order and set them to about the right places, and then you get singing. This is the Western Lines of Scotland route. Someone's just asking what route this is. This is the Western Lines of Scotland route. So it runs from Carlisle to Stranraer and has a little branch from Castle Douglas down to Clewbury, and we're actually on our way on that branch line heading back up to Castle Douglas on the main line.
Signal against us there. We've been given permission to proceed.
Good, good. It's always a challenge driving steam engines in manual firing mode, because particularly on the advanced locos you really are doing the job of two people. Normally there'll be two people on the footplate, one of them watching all the gauges and making sure everything's correct, the other one actually then operating all the driving controls and watching the signals. So you've got it's more about what you're looking at rather than what you're controlling, because your controls are relatively straightforward for the fireman, but you're having to constantly look and see what the fire's doing, see what the water levels are doing, see what the boiler pressure is doing, and then react according to your knowledge of what's actually going to be happening, what's the driver and the train going to be expecting of the boiler, and making sure that everything is correct for that. And that really is a full-time job. So manual firing at the same time as driving it's a big ask, and it really is. It's great fun once you get the hang of it, but it is definitely not something that's straightforward. Carmen99 says, in TS you can hold a coal on by chucking in a few shovelfuls any old hell, and it's more of an art on the real thing. Absolutely. Firing a steam loco is definitely, putting the coal in is an art, because you put the coal in different places in the fire, depending on whether you want boiler pressure now, whether you want heat now, what heat later, or where you want, and making sure that you don't end up with clinker clogging up the fire as well, which means you need to manage how you push the air. You've got primary air and secondary air. So primary air is what's coming up through the dampers from the up through the fire, which is good because it makes the fire nice and hot. And secondary air is then what you get through the firebox when you open the firebox door. So there's a lot of things to take into account when you're firing, many of which you don't really have to worry too much about even in the advanced mode simulations, but I think that there's enough to take into account given that you're one person doing two people's jobs.
He's gone away from me now.
It tells us that the correct head code for this, by the way, is the top lamp and the bottom right lamp.
So that's what?
1 and 4, I think. That's it. Unless that's bottom left. It didn't say whether who's left and who's right.
You can actually hear the engine singing now.
So where's our destination with these wagons then?
Back to yeah.
Oh, going back to Kikubi.
Yeah, that's the one.
ScotRail, is this the standard train sim 3F? This is the DLC pack from Mesh Tools, which you can get on Steam, and we're running the advanced version of the 3F. It all comes in the same pack. So Train Sim is actually having an interesting discussion at the moment about the use of the cut-off and about how it needs to be moved. So that's worth bearing in mind. So if you're not familiar with driving steam engines and you come more from driving a diesel or electric background, what you're going to find is that you're going to put the reverser all the way forward or backwards and then start driving. And then you're going to find that even with 100% on the regulator, you're not getting very fast. And that's because of the way the cut-off works. Now I'll leave you to go and find various diagrams and animations of exactly how the cylinders and the steam chest work in relation to this, but essentially the cut-off works kind of like gears. It's not gears, but it controls when steam is put into the cylinders, and by limiting it and cutting it off, that's the name, you can use your steam more efficiently. And so you end up with a problem where, for example, A, you're wasting a ton of steam that you don't need to, and B, you can actually get into a position that it can't get the steam back out of the cylinders fast enough, and so you're actually working against yourself at that point, and that's what tends to limit your speed. So by coming off of the regulator and then bringing the cut-off back a notch, or however many notches is appropriate for the speed, and coming back onto it, you'll actually find you get another resurgence of speed. And so you want to keep because as you accelerate, keep bringing that cutoff back. Don't go below about 15%. Anything below about 15%, you start actually not putting enough steam in. You're not going to get anywhere. But you really want to be, for example, if you're starting at 75%, once the wheels are moving just about, you can start bringing the cutoff back. In real steam locos, you want to be always starting with full cutoff. Again, it's down to the way that the positionings and the quarterings of the loco, of the wheels and cylinders are. You might end up with the cylinders in a position that if you're not running at full cutoff, then you're not actually, the valves are closed and you can't put steam in and therefore you can't move. So you always want to start with the cutoff full forward or full backwards, depending on what direction you're going. And then as you start moving, immediately start bringing that cutoff back. Now if you find that you're not getting enough speed, you can put the cutoff forward again a little bit. You'll also find that depending on the cutoff position, you're using more or less steam. So if you're constantly running out of boiler pressure, then you're probably running the cutoff too far forward. So start bringing that cutoff back and just play around with the cutoff while you're driving. You'll see that the boiler pressure goes up, where you can control the boiler pressure the way that it's changing by adjusting the cutoff. So if you then balance what the boiler pressure is doing versus what the loco is, how it's accelerating and decelerating, then you can control your boiler pressure a lot more easily. The other one that constantly I find that people, that when they're new to steam, they get wrong is, again, on a diesel or electric, you move the brakes to release, that's the correct position, and you start driving. On a steam engine, if you remove your brakes to release, you're actually using steam to regenerate the vacuum. What you then want to do, once the brakes are off, you need to put them back into the running or lap or self-lap state, whichever is appropriate for the loco you're driving. That will then seal that up again. And in some locos, that can make a massive difference for your boiler, your steam consumption. So again, if you find you're running out of steam quite a lot, then try making sure that you're putting your brakes into the running position and not leaving them in the release position, because the release position will waste steam. So Phil asks, what is the cutoff? Is it a separate control in the cab from the reverser regulator? So cutoff is the steam version of the reverser. They are exactly the same, and it appears in the same place. It's just a naming convention. If you want to call it reverser, feel free to call it reverser. Mr. Salmon says, how to know when or how much to increase reverser on grades? Practice, really. It's play about with it. What you'll find is that as you hit the grades, you maybe find that your speed starts to fall down. You'll find the right place then to start edging that reverser forward, and then don't make the changes too quickly, because you'll find that it takes a little bit of time for the train to react to it. So make a change, see what it does, make a change, see what it does, and watch your boiler pressure. So if your boiler pressure suddenly starts going down too fast, then you've gone too far forward and you need to pull it back again. And it may well be simply that you can't go up a hill fast, you have to go up it a bit slower, and then you can sort of balance out the steam usage. But you always want to try and make it as little as you can while still getting enough to keep the train moving at the speed you want to get it to. Graham would like to know what the PC specs are. I think it's a Core i7, can't remember which one, very high spec, 16 gigs of memory, SSD, and I think it's a GeForce 880 or something along those lines. Maybe a 780, I don't know. But it's a high spec graphics card. It really runs the game very nicely. So Wolf was just talking about an incident in America relating to something called an angle cock. The angle cocks on American trains are used to bottle the pressure inside brake systems. So as Carmen says, you'd be hard pressed to start a real loco on 45% cut off, depending on where the gear is sitting. So as I said, if you want to start your steam engine, always start it at full forwards or full backwards, and then the moment you start moving, you can start bringing that cut off back, and you just have to get practice with that. In a lot of cases, the steam trains in the game don't really stop you from starting. Some of them do. So the Black 5 on Western Lines of Scotland, for example, if you try and start that on less than full forward, there's a random chance it won't move, and it is done as a random chance, simulating the effect of the gearing being in the wrong place. So always start full cut off and then start moving back. Steve Garcia says, do you like the LBS CRA 1 Terriers? They're lovely little things, aren't they? Absolutely lovely little things. Difficult to fathom just how small they really are until you see someone actually in the cab of them and you wonder how to put in. Moggy says, was the cut-off different on the 9F? I'm sure I read that you started low and wound it up to find the biking right. So different drivers drove trains in different ways. Generally it was a regional thing, so there was the Great Western sort of technique and LMS drivers did it a different way. So for example, what some drivers used to do was they put it on full regulator once they were moving, they'd be on full regulator, and then they'd use the cut-off to actually control the speed. Others manage the regulator and the cut-off, some of them, and it's just there's different ways of driving them, and sometimes it's down to the style. For steam trains in the game, generally speaking, you want to follow a fairly similar approach, which is to use the regulator and the cut-off together. Start with full cut-off and then bring the cut-off back as you go faster, and then use the regulator as well to put more steam in. PJT 1974 Phil says, is there an optimum level for your fire mass? Yes, there is, and it varies based on the locomotive. If you get the fire mass at the optimum level, then it's most efficient at generating steam. The boiler pressure works. In a lot of locos, the most efficient level is actually the level that it starts at. So you want to keep it around the same thing. And if you go too low or too high, then if you imagine it's like a triangle, yeah. If you're at the middle bit, then it's most efficient. If you're too much, it's less efficient, and if you're too low, then it becomes less efficient. There's usually not an impact on firing. Unlike when you're injecting water, it'll hurt your boiler pressure because you're injecting this relatively cold water into the hot environment. It actually will damage your boiler pressure. So you don't want to do that, for example, when you're coming up or trying to ascend a big hill. Firing doesn't generally have the same impact, so you can fire as you need to. What you'll probably want to do is overfire it, so where if you don't need the steam right now, so that at the point you do need the steam, it's brought itself back to the point where it's at that optimum firing level. Scott Ross says, how long do you have to keep the cylinder cocks open for when departing? I would generally say you want to keep your cylinder cocks open for, I don't know, a dozen rotations of the wheels. You need to imagine that you're trying to get rid of all the water out of the cylinder cocks. The whole point is to drain them, and if you've got lots of steam coming out of there, give it a couple of minutes, and then you can close the cylinder cocks.
It varies by local.
It does very much, yeah. Van Leroy says, what loco is he driving at the moment? Well, Steve is driving the 3F, which is by Mesh Tools, and he's driving this on the Western Lines of Scotland, the Ginty, yes, 60163 cubed. Karma says a minimum of 4 complete wheel revolutions. There you go. Finished starting us, which era is this, LMS or BR? So this is sort of it's pretty much towards the end of the BR steam era of this particular line. The line didn't really survive much beyond this. That's it, all finished. Nice one, Steve. Expertly driven.
completed successfully.
Nicely done.
I've probably oversped a few times, but yeah, speeding 12 times.
It's the new Mr. Overspeed. Superb.
So there we go.
Well, that was the 3F on the Western Lines of Scotland, so that's pretty much all we've got for tonight, I think, Steve.
It is.
It is. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching. I hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope that's been educational and you picked up some tips on driving steam engines. Please do drop us any questions if you want to learn how to drive steam engines better. If you've got any questions on what you don't understand about them, they really are worth the challenge. They really are worth putting the effort into learning how to drive. They're great fun, but they're not the same as a diesel. They are unforgiving if you get it wrong. So yeah, it's really good.
And don't forget that we're always looking for content for Engine Driver as well. So if you are an expert in driving steam engines, why not write an article and share it with us on Engine Driver?
That's a very good point, Steve. Right, that's it from us. So thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you again on the next show. We'll post details as and when we know when that's going to be. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.